Well, hello everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of RaceSpotTV Friday Primetime here in the VRS GT Sprint Series. We head to perhaps the most famous Australian racing circuit, the ever formidable Bathurst at Mount Panorama. My name is Connery Medic, and as ever, I'll be joined by the ever wonderful Stefan Schlacker for this one. We have a bit of a stacked field here today, especially with some of the top iRacing guys that have decided to join us here for this one. And join us for an occasion they have here, Stefan, because this is not an easy track to get around just on one lap, let alone 40 minutes of racing.
Yeah, it's probably one of the toughest tracks out there. Might even say it's the toughest track out there that isn't the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So that track really brings on the heat, and these guys most definitely will have had their fair share of practice to not only get around one lap, but get around 40 minutes worth of laps very quickly as well.
Absolutely. Let's take a small little look at, well, what the schedule has been so far and what the schedule is going to be towards the end of the season as well. We've got ourselves 9 rounds under our belts already. We're on our 10th right now here at Bathurst. We've only got 2 more to go after this one. We head to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park Mosport for round number 11, and then for the finale, round number 12. At the start of December, we will head to France. We will head to the circuit to the south for 40 minutes around the French countryside. But yeah, this is probably the toughest circuit yet to come here. Stefan, of course, like I already said, it's very tough to get around here on one lap, let alone a full race distance. But with these guys in the top splits, and especially with some of the drivers like Alexander Voss, Bruno Carnairo, Oscar Rine, and also you've got Joni Takkonen involved in this one as well. No shortage of talent to wheel these GT3s around.
Now, Bathurst always brings out the best drivers that there are, and we're most definitely seeing this here once again. It's just great to see all of these guys to tackle the mountain here today for 40 minutes. And by the way, not only have they did they bring out a lot of iRacing, they also brought out a lot of BMWs, because majority of the field is exactly that. BMW M4 GT3 as we look on to the back of a Porsche. And the second strongest car seems to be the Ferrari 488 Evo 2, which for the first time this season, it is at least the second best car to have.
Does seem to be the case as the balance of performance somewhat fluctuates over the course of the season. You know, different tracks are favouring different cars. That's just how it is. The BOP is set sort of just for one, just for the entire season rather than for each individual race, which is why you see the variety in cars from track to track. But Joni Takkonen heading his way across the line, good enough for 4th place on the starting grid here towards the back end of qualifying. Of course, due to the track being so long here, Stefan, of course, it does mean that the time in qualifying does get pretty short, especially if you do mess up a lap here or there. Here comes Kevin Unk across the line. It's 2:01.9 is his best time. Not going to be improving on that particular lap, though, as he heads his way through. But we've just got about a minute to go here in the qualifying. We've got Cash Patel, who's still out there, 10th place at the moment. Still has a flying lap to go here as well. Should be able to get to the end from this position. A minute to go, and about 2/3 of the way through the lap. So Cash Patel looking to try and get himself a little bit further inside that top 10.
I'm a little bit surprised we haven't seen too many laps yet under the 2-minute and 1 second mark, as also Alexander Voss just completed his lap, being the fastest one by 10th over Nunes. A great attempt there by Alexander Voss, but yeah, no, the weather isn't that cool right now. I mean, it still is pretty much the bottom of the barrel that we can get. It's 20 degrees Celsius on the track, but I'm a little bit surprised that nobody has been able to get closer to the 2-minute mark.
I'm pretty surprised as well. The 2 minutes, 0.6 is the fastest time that Alexander Voss was able to put out there. Cash Patel, of course, over 2 minutes across the line now, is not able to improve on his fastest time there, so will remain down in P12, as there were a few other runners that came through there and got themselves their laps completed. But that is the qualifying session over and done with here at Bathurst for the VRS GT Sprint Series, round number 10, the official series, of course, here on iRacing. And here is how the grid will line up for this evening's race, with Alexander Voss on pole position, with Ronnie Nunes in second place. We got Ascari Rina in third place there, with Pedro Bianco in P4. Massimiliano Locatello starts in fifth place today, with Thibaut Prevost in P6. And then you cycle things back. Joni Takanen starts in P7, with Julian Salowski in P8, with Rasmus Tuominen in P9. You've got Pablo Arujo in P10. Gio Hook there in P11, with Cash Patel starting in P12. Brad Newman in 13th, with Gerald Chevalier in P14. Tuan Tran will start in 15th place, with Dennis Olsen in P16. Matthias Woodsko in P17, with Philip Meyer lining up in that 18th spot. Alex Conde will start in 19th, with Kyle Dunlop in P20. Anton Vetrodrev there in P21, excuse me, with Luca Nadeo in P22. Bruno Canairo will start in 23rd here. Today would have expected him to start a little bit further up, with Mattia Fugalini starting in 24th. Carlos Oseth Ruiz in P25, with Rafael Koszarczyk there in P26. Kevin Unik in P27. Aurelien Vercher starting 28th. Clement Bezulin in P29, and Carlos Morales de Chica will round out the 20-car starting grid that we have here today, or rather 30-car starting grid that we have here today. I do get my numbers mixed up a little bit sometimes, but these guys all ready and raring to go at this point for what is potentially going to be a pretty hectic Bathurst here. Hopefully not in the negative sense, but we've seen some interesting affairs in terms of the racing here before, that's for certain, Stefan.
Yeah, Bathurst always brings on the hectic part of racing, not only because you have to fight against each other, but also somewhat against your car and the track. So, not 100% surprising that the very stable platform that is the BMW M4 has been chosen as the best car to have. And by the way, by my notes, the top 4 of this field all have gotten a new week record in this qualifying.
Absolutely. So it just goes to show you the standard of the very top drivers here in this field, as we'll see head their way in towards the final corner here at Bathurst. To start the event, they'll get the green flag pretty much immediately. We're racing here in round number 10 of the VRS GT Sprint Series. As Alexander Voss, as your pole position sitter, has gone away very well, with Oscar Rine's second place as they all try and file their way through the first corner. Multiple instances of side-by-side in the mid-pack as they head their way down the straight towards turn number 2 for the first time. Of course, big gradient in this at this portion of the circuit, where you dip down the hill, then slightly back up the hill into the braking zone of turn number 2, but looks like everyone's got themselves through well, at least in the opening portions of this race. But this is where the issue comes here, Stefan, up onto the mountain for the first time. Who's going to survive it?
Yeah, and Rasmus Tuimanen with an incredible save out of Quarry Bend, took too much of the curb, fought his car all the way through Quarry Bend and somehow held on to that 10th place in his BMW. Great save to keep it all clean.
Fantastic stuff. No major instance that I'm seeing here on the mountain for the first time as they head their way through McPhillamy, parking into Skyline for the first time. This is when you start the descent all the way down the mountain, and those apexes come at you very, very quickly indeed. You want to hug the wall as closely as possible to try and extract the best lap time possible out of this circuit. It is an absolute roller coaster down there, and once you survive that, well, you can relax for a little bit because you've got this big old straight down towards the chase, so you can just catch your breath a little bit. But also, you maybe can't do that too much, especially if you have cars bearing down on you inside of the slipstream. And we're seeing side-by-side action between Prevo and Pianco on the way through the kink, and then onto the brakes here as they'll get that one all sorted out, no doubt. So the front of the field, rather than the front half, or rather the front 2/3 of the field, have gotten away pretty well here. We have had only 2 retirements already. This is Philip Meyer and Kyle Dunlop that had issues on that opening lap, but everyone else through clean for the first lap.
Yeah, and all of that, or at least for Maya, it all happened out, or rather into the cutting. There was a big car battle going on into that, and they all kind of collected each other. 3 cars were all damaged in that scenario. Don't know if we're actually gonna get something of that incident, but apart from that, and the lone spinner of Kyle Dunlop at McPhillamy Park, who also was part of that kerfuffle. We have another car in it. The pits. That was it so far.
Yeah, Pedro Piago having a big issue. Yeah, didn't quite spot how that came to be, but let's get the replay. And we can see for ourselves exactly what happened here to the number 16 car, because it seemed like they were just shoved all the way up against the wall coming through turn number 2. So let's see exactly what happened. Maybe think the battle with the Ferrari that's sitting up behind them there, looking down the outside on towards the brakes, and well, bit of contact on the entries at the corner, and causes that 16 to overspeed straight into the barrier.
That looks like a brake failure though, because he was blinking his brake lights. Have a look. Yeah, we're not gonna see it obviously from the onboard, but he was going on and off the brake there while turning. That was weird.
It was certainly an interesting one. Maybe we can get to see it from this angle, which might end up showing the rear of the car. No, not quite, but door-to-door contact.
You're right there.
You can see go. See the blinking there. Of course, that's not going to be something in the sim. Of course, if you're new to iRacing, that would be more of a potential hardware situation there for Pedro Bianco that might have just caused that one, or it could have just been a simple mistake and he was just consigned to the fact that he's going to hit the wall at some point and just might as well let it happen quicker. But yeah, a little bit of a weird one as we head our way through to start lap number 3 now. Alexander Voss still leads this one with Oscar Irina in P2. We've got Ronnie Nunez in P3 with Prevo P4 and Locatello residing in P5 for the moment. The front of the field has had a, well, they're taking this one pretty calm at the moment here. Of course, this is how these VRS GT sprint races usually go, with the amount of fuel saving that goes on in these particular races, but you do really have to be on top of things, so especially in particular at this racetrack where a lot of time can be won and lost through this very mountain section, and you might find if you're particularly slow through here, you're not really going to be close enough to get any draft of cars ahead of you if they're able to stretch the gap.
Yeah, it is always like that. I mean, obviously the BMW is going to have a little bit of an advantage right here, especially over the Porsche, over the Lamborghini and the Ferrari up ahead here. But D-straight, that is where it has the problems, especially out of force elbow with that incredible torque this car has out of low revs. It spins its rear tires a little bit too much, so the other guys can have a little bit of an acceleration advantage already going into Conrad Straight. So here obviously this is the troublesome spot for the BMW M4, but on top of the mountain, that's really where it can make its best. Have to say though, I'm really surprised that that Lamborghini of Pablo Araujo is holding on to this as well as he is right now.
Yeah, very solidly sort of nestled in the middle of this pack that's currently been established for P6 with Saloviski at the very front of this one in the BMW, and well, you look, Massimiliano Locatello starting to get away from them in the Ferrari, just at the very front of shot on the way in towards turn number 1 here. So these guys do have to be careful. They don't want to lose tabs on Locatello in this situation. It's beneficial for all of them if they just all stick within this big slipstreaming train. Down the mountain straight they come on the way in towards turn number 2. Saloviski is going to be holding on to this position. Joni Takinen doesn't seem to be in too much of a rush to get by and to take that 6th position away. Perhaps just using that number 11 BMW for a little bit of fuel saving. But there's a fine line between getting held up and being able to fuel save.
Yeah, I'm wondering right now if everybody in behind Julian Zalewski knows that this is as far as they're going to go. Maybe they're going to be able to jump up to Prevot, but at this time it's better to stay behind, save your fuel, because once again we have very long straights, we have fast sections. Also right here, Reed Park, Salmon Park, McPhilmy Park, they're all really fast corners, so you can lift off your throttle a little bit. Don't whoa, big wobble there from the 24 into the SS. That was very scary ride. Oh, there's a crash. No, that's
Locatello.
That's Locatello.
Locatello with a big instant coming down the hill, pointing in the wrong direction now, just trying to find a space to be able to swing that car back around. He's not really going to get an opportunity to, because it's just a constant stream of traffic. Oh, that is absolute tragedy there for Locatello. Let's see. Oh, he's just going to have to Austin Powers it, isn't he? And there's a car coming that he'll have to wait for as well. Oh, this is the worst situation, but it's a situation that we so often see here at Bathurst when you get spread eagle across the racetrack like this. It's not a great time. Let's try and have a look at exactly what happens here to Massimiliano Locatello. Oh, back end just came out on that final apex of Skyline. Just car did not want to settle, and all the way around she goes, and having to sit at the side of the circuit.
Just too aggressive into the dipper. So he was so aggressive into the dipper because he probably wanted to make up time to the car ahead of him, because he was starting to lose them a little bit up in front for those top 3 positions. Already did a little bit of a wiggle, and look at this, aggressive into the dipper, comes out the other side already with a 4-wheel slide that pushes him wide, and then there's that weird dip to the inside right on that curb where it starts, and that's exactly what Locatello hit with his rear only, and that's why he spun his Ferrari 488 around, just because of that 4-wheel slide into that dip that was just enough to break the traction of the rear wheels, and around she went. Nowhere to save that for the 7, and so he finds himself all the way back at the back end of the field.
It just goes to show how slim the margins for error here are here at the at Bathurst. It's you make one small mistake, you get yourself out of line a little bit, car gets upset a little bit. It's going to require a huge effort to try and recover, and sometimes there are some situations which you simply can't recover when you're trying to race up and down the mountain. But coming up to 30 minutes to go, we've almost had 10 minutes gone already here in this one. Alexander Voss in that blue BMW just trying to break away from the rest of the podium sitters here at the moment. He's gotten himself a good 7.5 tenths of a second advantage back to Ascari Rene. And you've also got Ronnie Nunez in the orange BMW there further back in the picture. It's a top 5 full of BMWs. The next different car manufacturer you'll get is Joni Takinen in P6 at the moment in the Porsche 911 GT3R. And you've got Lamborghini of Araujo in 8th place, a couple of Ferraris, Juhuk and Newman, P9, P10 are in the Ferraris. So, like I said, very BMW dominant here, just favouring the stability of and cornering prowess of that car more than anything else here at this circuit, just to make sure you can really get yourself around it.
Yeah, medium speed to high speed corners, that's where that BMW M4 GT3 strikes. And well, it's basically filled here at Bathurst with exactly that, as there's a little bit of a look to the inside from Joni Takanen, so he's not 100% comfortable with his position, especially knowing that Rasmus Tuimanen, who did overtake Pablo Araujo some laps ago, could make it a top 6 for the German manufacturer. So obviously the Porsche looking a little bit more antsy now, maybe even thinking that he is already good on fuel for that extra lap, having saved for the past 12-13 minutes.
Yeah, maybe Joni is starting to think it's go time in the Porsche, coming up to, well, past the quarter gone. In this race, they have lost quite a bit of time to those cars ahead of them. They're about 4 seconds adrift of Thibaut Prévost at the moment, so this battle for 5th is quite far away from getting up to 4th place and continuing to try and climb up the order. So maybe Salavisky is perhaps the cork in the bottle here that's keeping Tankonen and Toivonen and Araujo behind at the moment. They won't. It depends. You know, sometimes these situations are pretty good because you have a reliable driving partner ahead of you that you can just slipstream off of. But in some situations, you're just going to get held up a little bit too much. And well, we're seeing a little bit of fighting a little bit further back though. Carlos Ruiz and Luca Nadeo. We're going wheel to wheel there, and Bruno Canaro looking to squeeze his way through as well. I think Nadeo got himself a slowdown penalty, perhaps.
Yeah, actually, Nadeo was one of the cars that was involved in that first lap incident. So actually, he is still very damaged, and I think he's actually even more damaged now because that car really doesn't look very stable, as he also drives into pit lane now alongside Tuan Tran, who seems to be the first scheduled pit stop. Tran is.
Yeah, so Tuan Tran in, Nadeo in. Like you said, the first signs of the early stops coming through. Of course, there's always a couple that attempt it, and well, given certain drivers' sets of circumstances, it might be better for them than some others. But there's Joni Tankonen actually able to make the pass over the number 11 BMW on the way into turn 2, and well, climbing the hill now. Tankonen is looking to try and pull away. I wonder if that's going to trigger the other drivers behind and want to make them try and get themselves past the driver of Salavisky here. We'll get to see how that move was done, in fact.
Yeah, Tuimanen probably will try to do the same here in this lap. So the 4 goes to the inside, actually, here of turn number 2. Quarry Band does it so very nicely. Yeah, the 28 actually tried to do it right away. They're trying to go into the closing gap, but rightfully backed out. So maybe we're going to see a move here now down Conrad Strait into the chase from the 28.
Possibly. It might just happen like you said there, as we'll ride on board with the number 28 car as they slowly but steadily hunt down the number 11 ahead of them. And well, the thing is, the problem for them now is that Julian Salavisky in that BMW is now getting a bit of a slipstream off of Toivonen, but off of Takanen, excuse me, but Toivonen, regardless of that fact, just dives down the inside at the chase and is able to get that position complete. So Toivonen is through and now trying to lock onto the back of his fellow countryman ahead of him as, well, now Araujo wants to get into the action and gets down the inside of Salavisky in the final turn. So I think everyone's decided, okay, we're just going to dispose of perhaps a little bit of a slower driver here in this train and decide to go forwards and try and catch P4 instead.
Yeah, even is now down to 9th place as Joe Hook also did pass him. So yeah, a few corners and Zalewski down 4 positions. So really not the lap that he was hoping for.
Not at all. There's Joe Hook there. So basically, Julian Salavisky went from the very front of that train, just a lap ago, to the very back of the train. It does sometimes happen that quickly, especially when the cars behind you just simply want to freight train you down the inside, outside, not allow you to return back to the racing line. But sometimes that is just the situation. It has costed this whole pack another basically half a second up to Prévost, though. But I think maybe at this stage of the race they can start to gain time on those cars ahead and maybe make a bit of a show further towards those podium positions. But We've still got a while to go. We've still got ourselves our scheduled stops yet to be done as well. So just the fuel required to the end here. We don't need to take any tires here in this series. There's not really much of a point, and in fact you're hurting your race more than you're helping it by taking the fresh tires, because it takes a bit more time on pit lane that you can't make back out there on circuit. That's why everyone takes fuel only in this series. There's the battle for P2 heading their way through the chase though, with 24 minutes left to go. Oscar Lina and Ronnie Nunez perhaps deciding to fight it out for that second place on the podium. Voss has done very, very well here in the race lead. He's got himself a 2-second gap back to these guys now. So these two very much outside of the race leader's slipstream, and that's exactly what Alexander Voss wanted to hear.
Yeah, discounting Ronnie Nunez here, who is getting the slipstream of Oscar Rinne. Voss is the only driver to be under the 2:02 mark here per lap. And he does it lap in, lap out. So yeah, it was only a matter of time until he is going to be able to dispose these two of his draft. And now Oscar Rinne has to find all of lonesome against Ronnie Nunez, not getting the help of that draft. And by the way, not getting the help of the draft, also Joni Takanen now. And he still is about a 10th slower than what Thibaut Prévost is doing in 4th place. However, Rasmus Tuimanen, after getting a past Zalewski, he did lose a little bit of time, but closed right back into Joni Takanen. And it seems to be the much quicker driver between those two. So I would say Prévost in that 4th place might also not be yet that safe.
Might not be, as we'll see these guys for P2 and 3 negotiate the dipper, and of course continuing their descent down the mountain as well. Gaps sort of continuing to increase between these two and the race leader at the moment. It's almost up to about 2.5 seconds now. They are adrift of Alexander Voss, so Voss continuing to put in those very good lap times. By the way, I've seen Spinner on the timing sheet, and that is Mattia Fugolini, the Italian from DRS Wave Italy, looking to try and get himself spun all the way back around. Let's see what caused this one then, because our rate of attrition has actually been pretty good for a Bathurst race so far. So we haven't had too many incidents, but this is going to be one of them. Oh! Oh! Well avoided.
No way.
I don't know how he didn't hit a wall there.
That is, I think, the first time ever I've seen someone spin into Salman Park and not hit a single wall right there. Obviously, he was already carrying damage from that lap 1 incident. He also was one of the cars that got collected in that kerfuffle. So, yeah, Mattia Fugolini, I think the save of the year goes to Mattia.
Oh, I just... It's miraculous that he didn't hit the wall on the insides there. That was absolutely crazy. Let's ride on board with Mattia Fugolini as, 10 out of 10 for style, I suppose. And, well, it's a 180 rather than the full 360, but I think we can only ask for so much when it comes to avoiding walls at the very top of the mountain. But there we go. Fugolini, fantastic job to make sure that car does not hit a wall, but he still had to take a very long time to swing back around, as you do have to do. Oh, Ronnie Nunez running out pretty wide. Rene also almost had his own situation coming through McPhillamy Park there as well. So almost two major incidents in the space of about 30-40 seconds.
Yeah, highly lucky there by Nunez to get out of that without any scratches. That number 6 could have looked well worse for the wear. And he actually ended up doing just a little bit too fast, probably turned in too early as well. And that's what does it to you. Goes wide there, but great save. Kept it nicely under control. The number 6 to still stay in 3rd place. Not staying in 5th place anymore. That is, by the way, Rasmus Tuimanen. Rather Joni Takanen, who now dropped down to 7th place as Pablo Raucho also just passed him.
I'm not sure entirely what has happened there to Joni Takanen for him to drop those positions. I have to see what the lap time is as he heads his way across the line this time around, but firmly behind the Lamborghini of Pablo Araujo he is. Across the line they come, It was, let's see here, it's 2:02.9 from Joni Takanen there, which is, well, slow compared to most of the other runners around him that were doing low, high 2:01s. So it was about 7/10 to a full second lost on that lap alone for Joni Takanen, which might be the reason why he's had to slide in right behind Rasmus Teumann and of course Pablo Arujo as well. But we're across the halfway point of this race now, and well, still waiting for 98% of the field to come down in and take their one and only scheduled stops here in this one. Of course, we did have a handful of early stoppers. We had Tuan Tran come down in, we had Anton Vetraduev in as well. We also had Matthias Woodsco in addition. A handful of laps ago as well, but everyone else has continued to try and log the laps here. It's typical to what we're used to seeing in the VRS GT Sprint Series. Everyone just kind of trying to get the most out of the first stint and take the short fill to the end of the race, or as short of a fill as is possible. But looking back towards the front then, here's the battle for P2 between Oscar Arena and Ronnie Nunez. They've now gotten themselves to be about 3.7 seconds adrift of Alexander Voss, who leads this race at the moment. So I think Alexander Voss has probably covered off all that the two guys get behind could possibly gain in fuel saving in terms of stop time now. So I think Voss is relatively safe.
Yeah, Voss is very safe unless he throws himself a spanner in the works. He should have this very nicely sealed up. And by the way, with Joni Takanen, one thing that I have realized already when he was running in that big train behind Zalewski, he was always rather slow in that draft, and I think that's how the two guys that are now ahead of him, Araujo and Tuimanen, got past him. That Porsche just so slow that he was losing all that time down the straight. And obviously, with him getting overtaken, he loses a lot of time himself, and I think that's where we can explain why he lost 8/10 in that second last lap. So, yeah, Tuimanen, he has to hang on for the Takanen for dear life now behind those two, because they're starting to ever slightly streak away from his Porsche nose, and that's not great news for the number 4.
Not, and well, third in line in this particular train at the moment, keeping himself ahead of J-Hook at the moment, and well, he's hoping that potentially those scheduled stops, which are imminent, might help him out a little bit in terms of track position. But you're right, the Porsche is definitely not the strongest GT3 car in terms of straight line performance, which you do really need here. Two very, very long straights here, lots of high-speed corners as well, so you don't want a very draggy car or a low performance car whatsoever in terms of the straight line speed. So, go on.
Actually, the Porsche is very fast in a straight line. Where the problem comes in, it's not that good through high and medium speed turns. That's why they need a lot of downforce added onto the rear wing. And that's why the Porsche suffers then in the straight line. Remember back to Road America. I know it's a long way ago. I think it was week 4, if I'm not correct, or week 5. That's where the Porsche was the strongest car out there, just ahead of the Ferrari 488. So, as said, it really comes down for the Porsche. It is a very strong car in a straight line, but if there's a lot of medium and high-speed corners, it has to add so much downforce and grip to itself that it really loses a lot of top speed.
All right, that's a very nice explanation there. Thank you very much, Stefan. As well, there's not much point in having a car that's strong in a straight line. Is this when it, we show a corner to it and it gets petrified and has to have all the downforce. But but there we go. 15 minutes left to go here in this one. Alex Conde in P10 at the moment. We saw him have a little bit of a close moment there with Brad Newman for that 10th spot. We've got Kash Patel in P12 here at the moment as well, just slightly towards the back of shot there, and Dennis Olsen, the car at the extreme far end of this one. But it's been a pretty relaxed affair, at least in this middle portion of the race so far. Of course, we've had a couple of instances, or a handful of instances here and there, but nothing really absolutely major to speak of course, except the little moment that we saw with Massimiliano Locatello with his little incident coming down the hill, at least about 15 minutes ago. But at least at this stage, everyone's just kind of looking forward to those scheduled stops. And, well, they're going to be happening sooner rather than later, let me tell you that. Especially with 14 minutes left to go now. Those tanks are running pretty close to dry at this point, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see everyone come down in pretty much on the same lap here, due to the, of course, the length of the lap here. Maybe the pit window is just that little bit narrower than it would be otherwise in terms of just trying to push it that one extra lap.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, the pit lane isn't very long, so the delta that you actually lose just by traveling through pit lane isn't that big. So you always run the high risk of getting spat out right into the midst of the mid pack if you pit early from the lead pack. So you expect pretty much everybody to run this tank as dry as possible. Everybody comes in on the same lap, and we have our nice drive to the finish. And we're going to see a lot of people probably jump some positions just because they were able to fuel save for the first part of this race.
Ronnie Nunez, certainly one of those drivers, as he's sat up right behind Oscar Arena for pretty much the entire race so far. So he's one of those drivers that we're expecting to gain a lot of time in the pit stop phase here today. So I'm expecting that P2 and P3 battle to swap around once we get to those scheduled stops. We've got Thibaut Prévost in P4. He's been sort of running in no man's land a little bit, so I'm not expecting him to really make all that much forward progress inside of the pit stops. But we've had Pablo Arucho, who's currently saving right up behind Rasmus Toivonen, so he might have something to say with regards to the pit stop phase here coming up in a little bit. Maybe he'll try and get the jump in the track position over Rasmus Toivonen. Of course, Tankonen had a bit of a mixed day here today as well in that Porsche, really struggling to one pass on the straights and two whole positions on the straights due to the amount of downforce now required on that Porsche once we factor in, like you said, Stefan, the medium and high speed corners.
Yeah, and actually there's starting to be a really big fight behind Julian Zalewski for that 9th place, as he's really starting to drop off now on pace, and he just until McPhillamy Park had Alex Conde behind him, and I think at McPhillamy Park Alex Conde might have hit the wall on the inside and spat him right out over the curb, and now is finding himself behind Brad Newman, but maybe wants to make that once again a gunner.
Possibly. Here comes Alex Conde then, as they'll swing their way through the chase. I've just spotted the maybe a couple of positions changing at the very top of the order. Yeah, that's because Ronnie Nunez has decided to head his way down on towards the pit lane. So, and he's not not Ronnie Nunez, excuse me. Everyone but Ronnie Nunez has decided to head their way in. So Alexander Voss in as your race leader. Rasmus Toivonen also in. Oscar Arena also deciding to come in now as well. Prévost is in. Tankonen is in. We've got Kash Patel also coming in at this point as well. So a good half the field have picked this lap to try and get themselves their pit stop service underway. It's a very, very busy pit lane here, Stefan. Let's see what the stop times are going to be. Oscar Arena, of course, one of the longer ones. He's already gotten himself back out there, 10.2 seconds on the pit lane. Alexander Voss as your race leader, actually surprisingly quick compared to Oscar Arena. It's a 9.8 second stop for him. Prévost is also out as well, 9.9 second stop. Pablo Arujo is out ahead of Joni Tankonen with a 9.5 second stop here as well. So that's the situation, at least for the first grouping that came down on towards the pit lane. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and well, if you count Fuglini, 7 cars have decided to go at least one extra lap here. And I think the one extra is the only one they're going to be able to do. But then again, I have been wrong before.
Yeah, and for Alexander Voss, I had a quick look at all of his lap times. The pit-in lap that he just did was only his 2nd lap in 14 laps that was over the 2:02 mark. The other one was the 1st lap of this race. And if you're now saying, well, it's not surprising it's a pit-in lap that is obviously slower. Well, with the layout the pit-in has, it's actually as fast as the normal racetrack. So it is a little bit surprising that his lap was slower than a 2:02 with the pace that Alexander Voss has been going, as you can see from Ronnie Nunes. They really can fire their car into that chicane.
They really can, and the well, the pit entry here is a very tricky one to try and negotiate. You know, just to prevent yourself from getting yourself off tracks and hitting the walls and things like that, and getting yourself spun up over the curbs as well. But we've got Ronnie Nunes coming down in. Of course, his battle is less with Alexander Voss, and it's more with the driver that he was fighting with for P2. That would be Ascari Rina, as he heads his way out of the pit box now. 9.4 seconds on his stop here. Is he out ahead of Ascari Rina? No, he is not. He failed to get the jump here, despite going one more lap than Rina. It just wasn't enough to get himself ahead for some reason. Rina must have had an absolutely monstrous outlap.
A 2:29.7 for Rina. That was a second faster about than Alexander Voss even. So it was an extremely great outlap from Oscar Rina that did put him ahead of Ronnie Nunes. So great job by Rina. Maybe now he can shake himself off Nunes.
Possibly. It's not outside the realms of possibility. It's a 1.3 second gap between Rina and Nunes at the moment. So certainly one that can be quickly extended. So Nunes, of course, he had a 9.4 second stop compared to Ascari Rina's 10.2 second stop. So about 0.8 of a second faster on the pit lane there for Ronnie Nunes, but he ended up coming out probably about half a second further back than when he came in.
Yeah.
It must have been a shoddy in-lap for Nunes as well, let's be honest.
Well, let's have a look. Ronnie Nunes in lap was well, not really. It was lap 14 where he had a 2:02.7. So maybe it was that in-lap of Oscar Rina where he was half a second slower than him. So yeah, Nunes, really, really interesting how he didn't manage to jump Oscar Rina. I was out of bet all my money on that he would come ahead out of Rina. But here we go. Ronnie Nunes back in third place behind Oscar Rina and now has to chase the Finn down to the line.
David Barraclough in our YouTube chat says he was potentially going to be running out of fuel on pit lane there, which might have contributed to the more extended gap than we were expecting to see once the cars came off of pit lane. Just trying to see if the lane times do correlate with that, and yeah, I would say so, because the lane time for Ascari Rina was 32.4 seconds. For Ronnie Nunes, despite the faster stationary pit box time, his lane time was higher by about 0.5 of a second at 32.9. So there we have it. It was sputtering on fumes on pit lane apparently.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to run your tank as dry as possible, but Ronnie Nunes most definitely overdoing it then a little bit, and as I said, that pretty much explains why he is now this far behind. But one thing you can already see a little bit on our timing tower on the left side, he is starting to once again close in on the Finn, so maybe this battle for second place isn't yet over.
There's the gap. Under a second at this point, so Ronnie Nunes has done a good job over the last couple of laps to reel that gap back in. Now going to be starting to feel the tail end of the effects of the slipstream here, continuing to close up here down the straight, and well, gap down to about 0.6 of a second once they hit the brakes into the chase. So
also,
Nunes is closing in.
Look at the background. That is Thibaut Prévost. Where did he come from? He was 5 seconds back from these guys before the pit stops.
He had a relatively decent stop. Nothing that was too absolutely amazing, but yeah, Prévost bringing himself back into things here, which is very, very intriguing to see. We might even see, given the correct set of circumstances, a 3-car fight for P2 at the end of this event. That's certainly what Prevost is going to be hoping, because he's been in that sort of gap all on his own for the majority of the race. He wants to go and get himself stuck in now, but it requires these two ahead of him starting to battle wheel to wheel and slowing each other up. Rene ahead still at this stage, but Nunes is now basically right on his back bumper with about 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, and after the pit stop, Rasmus Tuiminen, he did just post his fastest lap of the race, a 2-minute 1.762. He is closing in also on Prevost, who is not closing in on these two. Oh, that might have been a wall hit there from Oscar Rene. Seems like though he was able to get out of that unscathed. Either way, we might still see that pedal for P4 between Prevost and Tuiminen, but it still is a 4.1 second gap between those two. And also, the time is really running out, as it seems like we're only going to have 2 more laps after this one.
Yeah, I get that feeling as well, but here comes Ronnie Nunes then. He's going to get a whole bunch of slipstream here down the straight, and well, he's going to have a bunch of overspeed coming down in towards the King. Here he comes, getting closer and closer and closer. Is he going to decide to make the move now? Yes, he is, towards the outside of the first apex of the chase. Doesn't quite have the overlap through the middle of the corner. Rene is able to keep himself ahead for now. 3 minutes to go here at round number 10 of the VRS GT Sprint Series here at Bathurst. Nunes has another couple of opportunities to try and get himself by. Prevost about 2.5 seconds adrift of this battle can factor in, maybe towards the very end, if these guys continue on fighting. Voss is just running away at the very front. He's got 6.3 seconds over these guys as Ronnie Nunes attempts another pass, this time on the way in towards turn number 2 as they go down the dip and back up the hill through the braking zone. Rene very late on the brakes to try and defend that one. You saw the car fishtailing a little bit through the braking zone, but he's able to keep himself ahead here. Fantastic defense from Oscar Rene. Nunes will have to wait another couple of moments.
Yeah, the Finn is always great on the brakes. Once again, utilizes that to the best of his abilities. Stays ahead of Nunes in that fight for second place. But for how long? Will he be able to stay ahead until the finish line? Well, the Finn might know the tale.
Here we go then, into Skyline, into the Dipper. Nunes, he's got to be thinking, okay, maybe another attempt coming through the chase this time around, but need to have the execution there and the commitment this time around through the Forest Elbow. Rene getting himself a very good run out of the corner, maybe will give a little bit less of an advantage to Nunes this time around as they climb up the hill and get themselves set for maybe a bit of a battle in towards the chase. It depends how far Ronnie Nunes can catch up at this stage, but maybe he's just a little bit too far back this time around. It might have to be a final lap thing, between these two as they negotiate the final couple of corners. 1 minute to go and they head their way across the line. This will be the start of the final lap. Voss 7 seconds ahead of them. He's had no problems all day, but things very much undecided for second place. There's the confirmation, the white flag being waved. 1 lap to go here at Bathurst, and Nunes basically trying to get as close to the back bumper of that BMW ahead of him as is feasibly possible. Here's the onboard with Nunes then as he'll continue to sit inside the slipstream, of course. Rene is going to try and defend the inside here in towards turn number 2. Nunes not going to commit too much to the outside. He's looking for a switch back off the corner, but Rene defends it well. Holds his line on the inside and keeps the middle as well as they'll start to climb the hill for the final time. Rene has made an absolutely fantastic defense so far, but he's still got a couple more opportunities that he'll need to cover off.
Yeah, Barney did wave that flag as if he knew great things will be on the line here. And the first attack and defensive cards have been played, and Rene with the better hand right now. It is, though, the Conrad Strait still looming above his head. What will the chase bring? Well, Nunes, he has to try something, he has to try something different, and he only has one last chance coming up now.
Absolutely does. Down the hill, there's no overtaking opportunities here. You just have to nail this exit as good as possible. And Nunes, well, he's closer this time around compared to where he was on the last lap. So Rene might have his work cut out for him into the chase, as this is going to be the last opportunity, or rather one of the last opportunities for Nunes to get by. There is a window of opportunity to the final corner if push comes to shove, but Nunes going for the move for P2 into the chase for the final time. Rene deep on the inside. He's able to hold position as Nunes switches back to the outside. There's a slight overlap at the exit of the corner. This will give Nunes the inside for the final corner. This will be a fantastic pass if he's able to manage it. Rene trying to swing and get the momentum around the outside. They make contact. Rene in the wall. Nunes P2. Prevo comes across the line to pick up P3 as Rene is trying to reverse across the line. There's a Lamborghini helping him there, perhaps. Oh, he's not quite across the line. Just well, he did. Well, is he across the line there? I think the line's a little bit further back there, but oh no, Oscar Rene. P4 at least. By the way, we did see Alexander Voss come across the line to win this race, by the way. He took the toe back to the pit lane so quickly that I can't even show him on screen at the moment. But what was that for P2, Stefan?
Yeah, it all came down to the last corner. I knew Oscar Rene would defend to the teeth, and yeah, that's exactly what happened. Great braking once again by Oscar Rene into that last corner, and the contact all happened because of Ronnie Nunes ever so slightly running atop the curb on the last corner, pushed himself into the left side door of Oscar Rene, and that's what all he needed to spin around.
This little up and under here from Nunes was absolute genius. He's just about able to draw himself alongside, but the contact through the final corner is indeed unfortunate. Let's have a look at it from up above. Just two cars making contact in the middle of the corner. That's really more of a racing instant for me, unfortunately. Two drivers just trying to go for the same bit of real estate. And unfortunately, it ends with one car in the wall. Nunes in P2 there, just pulling it off the circuit, taking the toe back to pit lane immediately as well. Alexander Voss, we do have to remind everyone, indeed won this race. And, well, that was kind of expected from the drop of the green flag. Let's have a look then at our official race results here from Bathurst for the VRS GT Sprint Series. Alexander Voss wins from Ronnie Nunes in second place. Thibaut Prevost was able to well, at least pick up that one position at the very end over Ascari Rene, finishes on the podium. Ascari Rene finishing in fourth place, Rasmus Toimnen in fifth, Rojo in P6, Tankman P7, Joe Hook there in P8 with Alex Conde in P9, Kash Patel will round out the top 10 cars. Vetroduev, in P11 with Tran in P12. Olsen in 13th with Newman 14th. Canairo in P15. Selavisky in P16 with Bezulin in P17. Kushajek there in P18. Osis Ruiz in P19. Undke there in P20. Then the final third of the field, Massimiliano Locatello, of course, he had his instant in the, well, first third of the race that put him in the wrong direction, pointing in the wrong direction on the mountain, and had to let a whole bunch of traffic through. He still finishes within a minute of your leader, though, in P21. Aurelian Verscher in P22 with Matthias Wusko in P23, Carlos Ferreira de Chica P24, Mattia Fugalini P25 with Gerald Chevalier in P26 with Luca Nadeo P27, Pedro Pianco in P28 with Philip Meyer in P29, and Cal Dunlop will round out the 30-car classified results here at Bathurst. Well, I guess we were rewarded by a bit of an enthralling finish there, Stefan, with the middle of the race being as calm as it was.
Yeah, but the calmness of the middle part that was the setup for the end, because you knew these guys are saving their fuel, they're saving their tires for the end spurt, and what an end spurt we got. And, you know, as great as Bathurst is, the next week, it is the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and, you know, cars there, it once again will be BMW that might be the dominant force in the land in the north, but we might see an Audi uprising once again. And don't forget about that pesky Italian rocket, the Lamborghini. It might have a say there too with its stability over the bumps.
Certainly a lot of questions that will only be answered in about a week's time. I'm certainly preparing myself for it. Of course, Mosport, for a fantastic circuit. I think it's one of the more underrated circuits on the iRacing service, at least in my opinion. But with that is all that we're going to have time for here today. My name, of course, has been Connery Maddock. I've been joined by the ever-wonderful Stefan Schlacker for this, the VRS GT Sprint Series here for RaceSpotTV, Friday prime time. We head to Mosport, same time, same place, next week. You don't want to miss it.